Pat.
Hi, Pat.
Hi, how are you all? Yes, I live in a multi-generational household. So I'm the oldest, and then the parents and my grandchildren, we all live in the same household. So when this the COVID made us, helped us to be at home, then we had to figure out where everybody would be, and we had to learn how to interact with each other differently. We had offices set up. My daughter-in-law was working in the dining room. My granddaughter was working in the breakfast room. My grandson was working upstairs, and I'd have to tip around most of the day until school was out. So that was, a little different for us to interact. So,
Okay.
that was our initial experience.
So I'm a student actually, and my dad is here also. But for me, I've had extensive experience with virtual learning before because I was homeschooled from first grade to fourth, so I get kind of like how it's supposed to go. And because from my mom, she was she always would check on me and stuff, but she wouldn't just stay next to me so that I could pay attention to my teacher, and being able to let my teacher teach me. But other than that, it's been pretty easy because I had experience before. So.
Now, I'm Dad. How y'all doing? I just want to say, just to kind of jump on top on what she was saying, because with me, like I said, it was more so learning. I have done some training courses for work online, but other than that, it's pretty minimal as far as exposure to online learning. And what I had to learn very quickly was the same thing that her mom already was doing, which is basically to pull back. So basically let the teacher teach. So with her, it was fairly easy to do that. I have a younger son who's 11, and he gets distracted easily. So I had to kind of check on him a little more to make sure he was still engaged. But I think the most important piece for us was setting up specific spaces for them to have for their online learning. This is your classroom. And to make sure that space was separate for them so they understood, so they could disengage when needed and engage when necessary. So that was probably a big piece for me as far as what I had to learn. That was very much on the job training. So
hello, I'm Stephanie Counts, and I believe that our situation may have been a little bit different. I'm a former superintendent of schools, and my husband is an IT specialist. He was a former CIO in a company. So my grandson was involved with the and with the virtual learning, and our experience wasn't so much. It wasn't a problem with the virtual learning because the children seem to know all kinds of things about the computers and where to go and what to do. It was more really establishing an environment that was conducive to do this. Putting them in a room, with a desk. He had all those advantages, but the interactions and things like that were missing. So I think our experience was more the surroundings and the environment and making it comfortable for him and making it so that the attention span continued.
And it's about setting out that defined space, and that's definitely one of the biggest keys and takeaways that I've had from my personal perspective as well. Even when I was an online student, I was working full time, going to school online. I had a child at home that I was trying to raise. This was several years ago. But I still knew that I had to have my designated space. So I had my office, and everybody kind of knew the rules. When I went in to study, it was like you didn't come in there unless the house was burning down. And I tried to set up things within my household that I studied. My kids studied at the same time. We tried to do those kinds of things. But it's about figuring out what works for your particular household. And no two households are alike. So one of the things in us sharing today, maybe you'll glean some ideas from others, but every household is different. And one of the most important things is trying to carve out that space. When you have young children, grade school age children, their attention span doesn't stay very long. And any teacher that has your child in a classroom all day will tell you she has to do a lot of things to make sure that that attention continues, that there's always something going on to keep their attention and keep them moving forward. And we have to try to figure out those same things for schooling at home.
My name is Jacqueline, and I am in Phoenix, Arizona. I don't have any school-age children, but instead, I work for the state of Arizona, and I'm a statewide HR consultant and the project lead for our statewide HR Academy. So I had the responsibility of listing my classroom program and placing it on a virtual platform. And that was adult learners are just as fidgety and have challenges around virtual learning as our school agers do.
That's
you know,
true.
so it's very challenging at times to get uncomfortable. Yes.
Yeah.
And so, attending a lot of training on how often we need to engage them, which the data showed us that we should engage them like every 6 to 9 minutes. And so you had to incorporate that into your modules and into your presentations and what have you. And so then we went a step further, and we use a behavior assessment predictive index, and I tried to use that to strike the balance when I'm bringing a cohort together or a class together. Sometimes they work as a cohort, striking the balance with my collaborators and my reserved, because once I let the leaders pick who was going to attend, select who was going to attend, and that didn't work out so well because we had a huge imbalancement of reserved individuals that were listening but not responding versus when we strike the balance. So I have a different spin on it, but still the same challenge in the virtual learning spot is working with the adult learner.
This is Larry. I had the pleasure of being able to, in the midst of my coach training, which did not use Zoom, it was totally on the telephone. So, and with me and my ADHD, I had to make sure it was a topic that I was interested in order to be able to maintain that attention. So for me, the interest was generally high because it was a different approach to working with people than I had experienced before. So it kept my interest. But had it been information that was of no interest, I would have completely zoned out. So for folks like myself who are easily distracted, it really becomes a challenge to maintain interest and keeping your attention in that virtual environment, and particularly when there's no visual stimulation.
Mm-hmm.
I can speak if no one else is. This is Stephanie. Can you hear me?
I can.
Okay. All right. I think I think that the way I would be answering it, again, I don't find that we were in any particular situation, but having been a principal myself of elementary, middle, high, and being a superintendent, and it's been a while, but I believe that we were building the plane as we were flying it. And so what the frustration that I saw being an educator myself was the lack of assessment, feedback from children in terms of what you're doing tonight, in terms of feedback, getting feedback from parents, from students, also assessing their ability. Again, you've got all these children, 25 or however many that are in the classroom, but all of them certainly aren't on the same certain levels. On the same level. And so, whereas in the classroom, you're able to do, some creative things with working with various levels. You're not, I didn't see as much of that just watching what my grandson was doing, going on in these classrooms, because the teachers themselves and many of the administrators are just learning. And I think as they learn more and do more, it's going to be more, it'll be easier. They'll learn how to do the breakout groups and things of that nature. But I think overall, it's just been like I said, building the plane as we fly it, and that was happening with the children, and it was happening with the administrators also.
Attest to the fact. So I am an assistant dean at a community college, and we have all adult students. I do have a couple of programs that have high school students who are working dually to get their high school diploma and an associate's degree at the same time. And so that was where we had our people. And we were doing the same thing. It was like one day we were having school as normal, and literally we went to spring break. Over spring break, I had to call all my faculty in and say, we can't have school come Monday, so everybody has to go virtual. And so some people were more prepared for it than others. Some faculty had never really done any online teaching, training. They had never been an online student. They didn't have, any kind of experience. So you're trying to coach and work with them. And like a couple of people have said, it's just kind of learning it on the fly. And so a lot of you may be having those same kind of experiences with your particular school district for your school children that are going through. Know that those educators are doing everything they can to try to get pulled up to speed as quickly as they can. But again, it takes time. And again, you'll find the differences depending on where you are and how the preparedness was before.
This is Andrew Ladd, and I'll just reflect. Certainly, we may not have many snow days or days when our students have to be out. And because we can continue to learn virtually, we will now know that there are other ways to learn than the classroom. The unfortunate thing about this COVID-19, we didn't get a lot of time to prepare for this. So
Right.
We know that students and families and organizations really didn't get enough time to begin to get all the technology and stuff in place. So if this were to happen again, and it may happen again, this is not the first time in history that we've had a pandemic that's really closed us down, but should it happen again, we will be better prepared. We didn't know that we would be in this situation for these many months. We thought when it came about so quickly that come June or late June, we would be back to normal. It just did not happen. So we didn't have the preparation time to get ready for it, to get all the necessary personal supplies or learning supplies. Everyone, as I think Ms. Count said, was not really at the same level in terms of having an ability to be prepared for it and being at the same level, not necessarily academically, but just having the kind of equipment that we all would need. And then I would just finally say that emotionally or mentally, we really were not prepared for this. And I don't know how you necessarily prepared for this, because now you go from a point of being very social in social environments to be less social, closed in, and it's just been really different. So even the emotional part of it for adults has been difficult. I think the kids probably have done better than we have, and because we know that they're so resilient.
Students are extremely resilient, and hey, they roll with the punches, and they are going to be a much stronger society, if you will, having gone through this experience now. When our grade school age kids now by the time they get ready to hit college, they are going to be so much further along than the generations before them. And it's all because we've kind of gone through this experience.
And I say no because what we've demonstrated now across the state of Arizona is that we have the ability to deliver virtual training and to be impactful, and that there's no need to occupy a space in an office. We had an executive order that we should reduce the footprint around our capital, and leaders would not allow us as employees and even leaders to adhere to it. And so I am very excited and happy that it has thrust us into this moment where now they see it, that we are very productive in this virtual space, and it will definitely afford for more creativeness and how we will continue to deliver training virtually. And we know that our millennial generation and Generation X really prefer the virtual, what we're learning, the virtual learning environment. And so I'm excited not to go back.
Almost an open-ended question. You had, and I probably looked at it too deeply, but I felt that you would have to be pretty excited about how things were before, and I wasn't in education.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair.
You know, I think probably less of my response was about COVID as it was that I felt that education could go a long way. So I definitely don't want it to go back as it was, but I'd like to use what we learned, as our last speaker said, the learnings that we gained through this COVID to be integrated. And I think that when teachers do their training next summer, I think that we're going to find a lot more creativity involved, because people now know that they can using this even in the classroom. And just one thing I'd like to add, I didn't answer about, I answered the question about what would I see the greatest thing that I could see come out of this. But I think that I'm just using an example. I also have founded a women's group in Charlotte, and the young woman that is getting ready to take it over is an event planner. And so much of what event planners are doing with these Zoom, with going into these smaller rooms to have discussions, to interact. I think that if people can get trained in that way, I think that they will be able to integrate all of what we've learned here with their educational practices and social justice. I think we need to do a little differently with that, and that's a whole nother subject.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that. I think you bring up a couple of points. Yeah, we weren't exactly in the best of spots before COVID, and hopefully this has given us some new opportunities to branch out in different ways that may help us to improve our overall education system. But yeah, it's definitely not going to go back to normal, which kind of takes us into the next segment. So I'm going to turn it back over to Dr. Dozier to kind of take us through where we think we may end up.